Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
The Story.
At Zoe, when kids come in, they can just go and just choose a toothbrush. And so kids will choose what colour. And this is like the first time they've had any choice. And you realise that, this could be a teenage boy. He's so desperate to even have anything that's his. He has been treated like a slave in every way imaginable. And so he is slowly starting to learn to trust.
G'day, I'm Jimmy Colfax. Welcome to The Story. Well, today we have part 2 of our conversation with David Cross, who's sharing his life journey and how the Lord led him to become the CEO of the Zoe Foundation Australia. The Zoe Foundation Australia is a ministry that's aim is to rescue children from child trafficking and to restore survivors. As we heard last time, David and his wife always had a heart for helping children heal from trauma. Also, we heard how the Lord worked in his life and led him and his wife to have a burning desire to help rescue children. Ultimately, David and his family left their comfortable life in Melbourne and went to live in Thailand and serve with the Zoe Foundation there. Today, we'll hear what happened next in David's life and what it's like to be part of a ministry that rescues and restores children. And parents, before we get started, I just want to remind you that due to the adult themes that will be discussed related to child trafficking, today's program is not appropriate for young listeners. Once again, David Cross is chatting with Eric Scatterbo in our Melbourne studios.
So when you arrived in Thailand, what did you do? What was your job responsibilities?
Yeah, so our heartbeat, my wife and my heartbeat is restoration. So helping kids to heal from trauma. So
just like you had been doing?
Absolutely. So, if I think about that area of our work, so Zoe is a Christian organisation. Our aim is to reach people with the gospel and to rescue kids from modern-day slavery and care for orphan children. So the area that we were kind of passionate about was in the area of preventing child trafficking, working alongside law enforcement to rescue children, and then helping kids' lives be restored. So Andrea and I worked in the area of restoration. So our parents, our carers are Indigenous staff or Thai staff. So we would do support for them as they were helping to raise kids that have been through pretty incredible trauma, and then help with things like kids camps or times for parents to have time off or programs in kids ministry or youth ministry. And so, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Fun?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Like, their past is their past. So kids have had the most horrific times prior to coming into Zoe. They've suffered abuse and things that you would never, ever dream a child to ever have.
Yeah, terrible.
But when they step in, our aim is to try and help them to heal from trauma. So there's counselors.
How did they get to you in the first place?
So we'll get tips, and so we work as part of what's called a multidisciplinary task force. And so the police are there, the Department of Social Welfare are there, and then Zoe is invited to be in those meetings, and then they'll organise a raid when they find that there's children in situations of sexual slavery or other forms of labour slavery, and the police will do a raid, and our team will go with them on the raid. Our social workers will go, and others will help the police support that, and then post-rescue they will bring them to Zoe or to another place where they're safe. And so at that point...
so here's this child, all confused.
Yeah.
Having been traumatized by all the things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
They're handed over to your organization.
Yep.
Then what happens?
Then it's like that cartoon you see with like a kid walking around with like a dark cloud over their head, they're constantly being rained on. Some kids are angry. Some kids are very confused. They all hate you. So there's not like that kid comes running in, arms open. Thank you for
I love
rescuing
you so much.
me.
Yeah, that's not.
There's none of that. If you think you're doing it to be loved, that is not the case. They hate everyone.
Because they don't know you have good intentions.
Yeah, you're potentially just another adult that's going to do the wrong thing by them. So,
that's so sad.
Sometimes kids will come in and they won't even eat food because they're like, no, I'm not touching that, because if they think that if they receive anything, it forms a bond or a contract, and then they've been part of a system where everything in their life has strings attached.
It's all transactional.
All transactional. So if they receive some clothing, they think, okay, well, that's going to give, someone's going to come through the door and...
Expecting something.
Yeah, sexually abuse me or treat me in ways that no child should ever be treated. So we saw kids come in very broken. The first 24 hours is very rough. The first 3 days is horrific. But after time, when you're in an environment where people love you and care for you. Some kids would eat so much food that they would be physically sick because they never knew where the next meal was coming from. So they would eat so much that they would just vomit. It takes them a while just to even get into a regular pattern.
Because they couldn't trust that more food was coming.
And they didn't know. So kids store food. They try and hold things. They, we've got this little place at Zoe. When kids come in, they can just go and just choose a toothbrush. And so kids will choose what colour. And it's like the first time they've had any choice. So they'll take a teddy bear, and sometimes the kids, even big kids like teenagers, will want that teddy bear. And they'll go to, and they're like, "Oh, can I keep this?" And you realise that this could be a teenage boy, and he's so desperate to even have anything that's his. So he's never owned anything, never owned a toothbrush, never owned a teddy bear. He has been treated like a slave in every way imaginable. And so he is slowly starting to learn to trust. And so building trust through safe and loving relationships takes time.
So that was your role.
Yeah. So
you and your wife were in the position, if I'm following you correctly, of teaching these poor traumatized children how to trust and be loved.
Yeah, so we're not the heroes in the story. The heroes in the story are our Thai team. They are the heroes in the story. They are the ones that care for these kids 24/7. They're the ones that help them to really learn all of these key things. They're the ones that cop it the worst of anyone else. And then as a foreigner, as a missionary, as a field worker, my role is to support them.
Oh, okay.
And, step in and out. So I do classes and things. I do, so when I then say, when there's times for activities, others can help with that. So it's about to try and create some fun. Let's get some...
Let's get to the fun now.
Build some memories.
Where does the fun enter into this?
So when you're doing camps, you realise, kids want to play.
Yeah, even though they're traumatized,
and they've never had a chance to play. Never had a chance to be kids. Never played a board game. Never done any of those things, and so it takes time for them just to relax. And part of that is just creating memories. Building a billy cart and running it down the hill, teaching kids to ride a bicycle, all of these things, playing a game of soccer, all of these things help to slowly give them some other things. It also gets energy out. So running around the field, practical, and it gives the parents and the carers just a little bit of a break. So that's part of what I was part of in the first season.
Oh, you just came in for the fun.
Yeah. Oh, I like to play. We had this hill.
I'm not opposed to it myself.
And we got this big juicy hill at Zoe, and it's got like kind of mounds as you go down it. So kids camp, they get this big piece of plastic, and we create this massive slip and slide. So even
now
if
I'm knowing the true reason why you got involved.
Definitely, I just want to have fun. So even when I was no longer helping in that area and helping in other areas, I would
volunteer for that.
I'd bring a spare change of clothes on those days because
smart.
Yeah, smart. Absolutely. And you got to laugh. Honestly, this kind of work.
Oh yeah, I mean it could be so depressing. Well, it is depressing.
It is. It's really hard work, and I'm not trying to dismiss the trauma and what kids have been through, but it's hard to live in that space.
But you're helping them get out of that.
Correct. And we believe that their past is their past. We believe that we don't want to diminish their trauma in any way, and we have counsellors and other people that do that side of the work, but we don't want them to be they're not their abuse. That's not who they are. So we're trying to help them to learn who they really are. And kids haven't had an opportunity to discover. We had a young man that just hadn't played music before, and that was his thing. He wasn't great at school, but got a guitar out, got that thing going, and found out he was an incredible guitarist, and that unlocked something in him. He started to dream, and he wanted to write music, and then we want to try and build that gift in him. So that's a way that he can be like, oh, this is actually fun. I'm good at this, and I can actually contribute to other people. And I think that's one of the things with helping kids to heal from trauma is that as they move to a point that they get well, or to a point they can help someone else, that's when you see a shift, because then maybe they can teach someone else who's younger the guitar, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I can help, I can contribute, I am someone who can give to society rather than be the receiver.
Now that had to be incredibly fulfilling for you and your wife to know that you're a part of that over and over. So did you feel, yes, God, now I know why you were tugging my heart, why we're here.
I just feel so fortunate, to be honest. Yeah, I feel so fortunate that we got to, and we continue to be a part of what God's doing in healing kids from trauma. It's not easy work. It's hard work.
Yeah, you're making
day.
it sound like, oh, it's just fun.
No. I believe that God is good. I start the day every morning believing that God is good, and so I try and always pull out. And this is what's really hard about this work, especially, and I want to shout out to any who's listening to the call who's in law enforcement or in areas of child protection. They do incredible work. People that are investigators, even in this country, they deal with hard stuff every day. They have to read reports. They have to catalogue content, abuse material, all of that, and pass that. And they live in a space that they see complete darkness.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of the darkness, and that's a part of what we do. But I'm super fortunate that in our work, we actually help children to step through the darkness towards the light.
Yes.
And so...
And you kind of see the lights going back into their eyes, I guess?
Absolutely. You see, I mean, we've helped kids that we've had experts tell us will never heal. They'll never get better. They say the trauma that child has been through because of the abuse they've suffered means they'll never, ever be restored. They'll never learn.
Well, that's what they thought.
That's what they think. They say they'll not learn. They won't be able to absorb content at school because their brain's not developed enough. They won't be able to have relationships because they won't be able to connect because of detachment disorder and other things that have happened. They won't be able to hold down a job because they won't be able to show commitment. I mean, I've seen kids that came in, like one of the young guys that came in, he used to bound around on the floor. When he went from one place to another, he'd sit in the corner of the room and eat soap. He would chew on anything, like to try and desensitize things. And he had experienced trauma that no child should ever experience. But by God's grace and by the parents at Zoe who cared for him and loved him and helped him on his journey, I watched him graduate and finish a milestone at school. I watched him do vocational training and learn new skills. I saw him get his first job, and he got to this job that his employer just absolutely loved him and was like, he's our best staff member. He maintained a job. I saw him fall in love with a young lady, and I watched him go in a relationship. I was at the day the day of his wedding, and so I was at the back of the room ugly crying. Like I was an absolute mess because I was watching this young man make a commitment to a young lady. And I bawled my eyes out.
Yeah, you knew what he...
Absolutely.
Where he had come from.
Seen his story and seen God completely heal and transform areas of his life. And
when people said it couldn't be done.
And I've held his babies. You know, I've held his
that's
kids.
got to be so fulfilling.
Absolutely. And I'm watching, you know, I visited back late last year and, went out to dinner with some people and his kids were there. And you just say, well, don't tell me God can't do it. And it's not a perfect story. None of these stories are perfect stories.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not like you just flick a switch and...
And it's a healing journey, right?
Yeah.
So it's
a
not
process.
Like, hey, everything's perfect. You know, it's not. There's been brokenness, but God is so good. God is a healer. God is moving. He is working, and we've just seen that He is slowly taking these kids on a journey towards healing and transformation. I mean, then they're part of a local church, and the local church is pivotal in to try and support people. It's a caring community where you can come as you are. You can have some challenges, but there's people there that are happy to help you step through and just love you. So if you can build enough safe and trusting people around children and young adults, you can actually step along the journey with them. And so that's the thing for me, is I've seen God do so many miracles that there's not a single situation that someone would face that I'd say, well, God can't do it, because we've just seen the impossible. And so
you're basically seeing people come back to life, in a sense.
Absolutely. And this is the word. Zoe means life. It's the abundant, flourishing life of God. And so we've seen that so many times. And I just think that God is a healer. You know, His name is Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. And so...
And you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, and it's not easy. So if there's people that are listening that are in pain right now, or you've got challenges in your life, or you're like, there's mess in your family, hold on, because it's not finished yet. I mean, I feel like in my journey, if you stop the tape at any moment, you would say this is probably a failure. At any point in that man's story, if you stopped it and just said, okay, let's evaluate right now, you'd say, it doesn't look great right now. But you've got to continue to step it out and go on the journey and the story. And then, God is always moving. Mm-hmm. And then later on, you have the benefit of hindsight. You look back and say, wow, that took a while.
Yeah.
But eventually, we saw that God did a miracle. And so he does miracles. That's what he does. And so I don't want to dismiss people's pain or have people who have gone through childhood trauma or things like that. That is real and that pain is significant. But my prayer for each person is that they would go on that journey towards healing and transformation, that they would find safe and trusting adults that they can share, that they can get counseling. Absolutely. It takes a village. Like it's not like a moment that, okay.
Because they have to begin to trust again.
Absolutely. Begin to trust, find people that can step through that journey with them, journey alongside them, and then live in the mystery. I can't explain everything that's happened. I have lots of questions for God. Why did this happen? How did that even happen to begin with? Or what happened there? And I just have to sit in the mystery and just say, well,
trust.
God, and trust and obey. I don't understand everything. Sometimes things make sense 5 years later. Other times they don't. And that's the mystery.
You're listening to The Story. Today, Eric Scatterbo is once again chatting with David Cross, who's the CEO of the Zoe Foundation Australia. The Zoe Foundation is a ministry that's aim is to rescue children from child trafficking and restore survivors. Next, we'll hear more of David's story and some unexpected challenges he's faced. All that and more is coming up when we return.
If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Colfax and this is The Story. Today, our guest once again is David Cross, who's the CEO of the Zoe Foundation Australia. As we've been hearing, in 2010, David and his family moved to Thailand to help rescue children from child trafficking and to help restore survivors, which was exactly what the Lord had led him and his wife to do. However, as we're about to hear, David faced some serious challenges that completely changed his outlook on life. Now, here's more of his conversation with Eric Scatterbo.
So, at this point in your journey, it sounds like hard work, but very fulfilling.
Yeah.
But then, after you're there for a while, there were some problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I got to the stage that I was carrying burdens that were never meant to carry. And so we'd started our work in Australia. I'm working in Thailand. My wife and I were helping Zoe to start like a transitional living program for kids who are over 18. It was one of the best seasons of our life. So much going on, helping young people after they got home from their job and, they're crying because they had a bad day and patching them up. Not just me, a team of people that we worked alongside. And I think I just chose to carry things that weren't mine to carry. And I got to the point...
So you're saying you weren't perfect?
Nah! That's the joy. That is the joy of me. I am one of the most broken individuals, which should give anyone who's listening confidence. Thank
goodness the Lord uses imperfect people.
Yeah, it's so funny because we were doing preaching when we were back in Australia, and my wife and I that time decided to share it because she knew I wasn't well, but I already had commitments, and she could see that I needed a break. And so we did a teaching together, and randomly she adds in about because we checked what we were saying, that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. So she just chooses to add that in one Sunday morning as we're preaching together.
Your wife knows.
Oh, my goodness. So I'm just standing there going, I hope I can hold this together. So, to say that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness is the most accurate, just true, authentic parts of Scripture. So I was in Australia, felt like I wasn't well, waking up every morning, crying my eyes out, wasn't able to, just wanting to sleep all the time.
Was it depression or?
Yeah, I just got overwhelmed. Life was overwhelming. They'd say it's burnout, but I got to a really, really dark place.
So just years and years of it had built up, or?
I don't know how it happened. I had someone speak one day who was, said, I got a picture for you. Didn't know me at all. And he said, I can see you and you're like that guy on stage that's got those sticks and he's spinning plates and they go down the line and they spin another plate. And he's like, you just keep adding plates. And then you run back and you spin and then you run back and you add another plate. And he said, I believe God's saying to you, you need to let some other people spin some plates.
Well, let me just guess here. You tell me if I'm right. You're doing wonderful work. And it would be so tempting to say, oh, if I could help this person, then maybe I could help 2 people at a time, or maybe I could help over here. And there's so much stuff that you could do to help. The temptation is to help way more than you possibly should. Is that kind of?
100%. And as a dad, it's the most shameful period of my life because I did not understand or see my family as ministry.
Oh.
So I would be giving 100% to everything else and I had nothing left. And
for your family?
Yeah, for my family. Yeah. So
painful lesson to learn?
Oh, painful lesson. And I've made a lot of mistakes as a dad. I mean, I had no tolerance then for my kids. So how does that work? You're giving your life to help kids and you've got no tolerance for the 3 kids that are in your house.
But I'm helping all these people.
Yeah, that's just self-justification.
So that's an easy trap to fall in because you have good intentions.
Yeah.
It's not like you have bad intentions.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the great things, isn't it? Intentions. We all have good intentions. We judge we judge ourselves by our intentions.
I intended well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think
the devil uses our good intentions to get us off track.
And it wasn't the ministry, it wasn't my leaders, it wasn't anything. It was me. Like it wasn't anyone's fault. I had taken on things that weren't mine to carry. I couldn't sleep at night. And then my brain just had shut down and I had zero capacity. I had zero tolerance. If someone came into where my office was and had an idea, I was just, I can't take any more right now. Like I just stopped dreaming. So by God's grace, my board in Australia were really kind. They told me to have some time off and I thought, okay, 2 weeks, I'll be right. So
I just need 2 weeks. I'll be
2 weeks. I just need a holiday. So went back to Thailand, which is where our home was. I thought I'll have a couple of weeks off, and that turned into 7 months. So I was pretty broken. I would get up in the morning sometimes. I'd just lie on my couch all day and cry. And I just felt like such a failure. I felt like I was letting people down. I was letting my family down. And then I had some really dark thoughts in that time. I wanted to end my life. Which made no sense. I look back at that person there and think, how is that possible? Like,
yeah,
how
you're
did
going
he get
from
there?
Such a wonderful high of helping people to that
and
low.
I'm so fortunate.
Yeah.
Like I've got a great wife who I love dearly.
But when you're burnt out,
you can't see the silver lining. Yeah, every day. And I had this fear of I couldn't leave the house because what happens if I went out and someone said to me, oh, what have you been up to? What am I going to say to them? I've just been sitting at home crying my eyes out all day. So I didn't leave the house for many months. But by God's grace, I got connected started to do some counselling. I had a couple of friends that said, okay, I'm just going to come and meet you and we'll go for a walk around the park. And very baby steps. And God started to unpack a whole lot of stuff. To be honest, I felt like I was missing a wire. I knew God in my head. I had a knowledge of God, but I didn't have a revelation of God as my Father. And there was something, it was like I missed a cable from my head to my heart where I had to unpack, what does it mean to be loved by God? Because I was good at doing things. I was a doer.
Yeah, we're hearing all these things you're doing.
And it's not me. I don't want there's a lot of great people doing good things, but I don't like to be lazy, right? I'm a doer. I'm a go-getter. Let's get things going, which is all good if the right way. It's a God-given gift, but somewhere in there, my whole identity got caught up in.
Were you a people pleaser?
I was a people pleaser.
Oh,
just didn't realize it.
The best motives.
No, it's because 2 people can do the same task, and one's doing it to please others, and one's doing it to serve, and you can't tell. No one can see the
from
difference.
the outside. Yeah.
Well, that was part 2 of Eric Scadabow's conversation with David Cross, who's the CEO of the Zoe Foundation Australia. Sadly, as we just heard, in the midst of doing wonderful work for the Lord, helping rescue children from child trafficking, David had a breakdown of sorts and suffered from burnout. He shared that he'd fallen into the trap of being a people pleaser and that he was taking on burdens that weren't his to carry. As we'll hear next time, a book that helped him in his recovery is called When People Are Big and God is Small by Edward T. Welch. It's written to help people who crave people's approval to an unhealthy extent and live in fear of being rejected. It's also for people who struggle to realise that God's love is unconditional and there's nothing we can do to earn it. As it says in the Bible, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Once we can accept God's perfect love for us, we no longer have to live in fear of what others think of us. Well, if you can identify with being a people pleaser and what David went through, and you need someone to pray with you about this, our prayer line is 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. A member of our prayer team is standing by and would love to pray with you on that number again, 1-800-772-936. We invite you to join us again next time as we'll hear more of David's story and how God eventually helps him to heal and how the Lord leads him and his family back to Australia to do ministry. All that and more is coming up next time. Until then, I'm Jimmy Colfax, encouraging you to share your story with someone today.
Next time on The Story.
Really good friend of mine gave me a book called He Loves Me, and it's that picture of someone with a daisy flower, like what girls do or boys do. He loves me not. I had a good day, he loves me. I had a bad day, he loves me not. And sometimes we do that in our relationship with God. We let the circumstances around us say, oh, well, God loves me because it went well, or God doesn't love me, and we have this distorted view of the love of God.
In 2010, David and his family moved to Thailand to help rescue children from child trafficking and to help restore survivors. However, while serving, David began to suffer from burnout and came to realise that he had fallen into the trap of being a people pleaser. We'll hear how the Lord helps him to heal next time.
The Story.
Just another way Vision is helping you look to God daily.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.